EXO MAIDEN, The Awakening. Dr. Kaela Voss opened her eyes to darkness. Cold air bit at her skin. Her body shivered as she pulled herself out of the cryopod. The glass door slid open with a hiss, revealing a dim, flickering corridor. A soft red light blinked in the distance. Somewhere deep in the station, water dripped, slow, steady, and loud in the silence. Kaela's head ached. Her breath fogged in front of her, and her limbs felt heavy, like they had been frozen for years. "System. Status," she whispered. No response. The walls around her were damp, covered with condensation. A few panels sparked, wires hanging like dead vines. She looked down at her wrist. A small screen blinked weakly, struggling to power on. The time and date were corrupted. No clue how long she'd been asleep. She stumbled forward, grabbing the wall for balance. Her bare feet slapped against the cold metal floor. Her white cryosuit clung to her skin, but the air was freezing. She passed through the hallway, stepping over fallen beams and shattered glass. It was clear. EXO-09, the underwater research station, had suffered serious damage. "Hello," she called out. Only her echo answered. Kaela reached the command center. The doors were half open. She squeezed through. Inside, the large observation window showed the outside world, the deep alien ocean. It was dark red, almost like blood, with thick currents flowing past the base. Strange glowing shapes moved in the distance, too big to be fish, too slow to be machines. She turned her attention to the main console. Most of the monitors were black, but one flickered to life. Static danced on the screen. A single word repeated across the interface. "Awakening, awakening, awakening." "What does that mean?" she asked. A sudden loud crash echoed from somewhere below. The whole base shook. Lights blinked rapidly, then went dark again. Emergency red lights kicked in. The temperature dropped. Kaela dug through a nearby locker. She found a thermal jacket, boots, and a flashlight. She wrapped herself tightly and clipped the flashlight to her chest. She also found a data tablet, half-charged. As she moved through the station, she tried to remember what happened. Her mind was blurry. There was a mission. Something about deep-sea mining and alien organisms, and then a blackout. She reached the lab sector. Doors hung crooked on their hinges. Inside the lab, equipment was broken. Samples floated in cracked glass containers. One sample was labeled Specimen 34, dormant. But the container was empty. Kaela leaned closer. Something had broken out. Her flashlight flickered. She smacked it. It steadied, but her hands were shaking now. She checked the logs. Most were corrupted, but a voice message played. "This is Dr. Holland. We found something in the lower trench. It's not just biology. It's something more. Alive. Watching us. The others think we should leave, but Command ordered more samples. Kaela, if you ever wake up, don't go to level 3. The message ended in static. Kaela stared at the hatch to level 3. A red warning light blinked above it. Water seeped through the edges. The base groaned like a dying beast. She turned and ran back toward the medbay. She needed answers before going deeper. In the medbay, she found more broken equipment. The medical logs showed that several crew members were injured in a containment breach. No names, no full details. But the last entry chilled her. All crew showing signs of neural disruption. Hallucinations, paranoia. We tried to sedate them. Didn't work. One by one, they disappeared. Kaela sat down, trying to steady her breathing. She looked at her hand. A thin scar ran across her wrist, something she didn't remember. Did she hurt herself before going under? The base shook again. This time, it was more violent. The lights dimmed. Something scraped against the outer hull, metal on metal. She rushed to the observation deck again. Through the glass, she saw a shadow pass through the ocean current. It was massive, at least the size of a submarine. Then she saw it, 2 glowing eyes staring directly at her. Not like an animal, not curious, more like it recognized her. She stepped back, heart racing. The water outside began to churn. The whole base creaked. Alarms blared again. Hull breach detected. Lower level. She didn't have much time. Kaela made a decision. She had to reach the memory core. If she could restore even part of the system, maybe she'd learn what went wrong and what was still out there. She followed a narrow maintenance shaft down to the lower engineering bay. The shaft was tight, barely lit, and smelled of mold and metal. The further down she went, the louder the sounds became. Wet slapping, dragging noises, whispers in a language he didn't know. She reached the memory core room. The door was sealed, covered in strange black growth, like coral, but pulsing. She hesitated. Her instincts screamed at her to turn back, but she had to know. She touched the growth. It retracted like it was alive. The door unlocked with a click. Inside, the core was intact, surrounded by blue lights. She activated the terminal. A hologram appeared, showing the entire EXO MAIDEN base. A section blinked red. Specimen containment. Another log played. We thought it was dormant. We were wrong. It doesn't kill to feed. It kills to learn. Every brain it absorbs makes it smarter. Kaela's mouth went dry. It knows us now. It knows you, Kaela. You were the only one it didn't reach. That's why we put you under. You have to end it. Suddenly, the base lights went black. In the silence, something breathed behind her. She turned slowly. At the edge of the doorway stood a figure. It looked almost human, but its eyes were glowing red. Kaela backed away. The creature tilted its head, curious. Then it spoke, in her own voice. "Hello, Dr. Voss. Ready to learn?" The lights exploded. The station shook harder than before. Kaela grabbed the data tablet and ran. The creature didn't follow, but she could hear it moving in the vents above her. She reached the upper levels and sealed the hatch behind her. Her heart pounded in her ears. She had to find a way to destroy the station, or at least stop that thing from escaping. She reached the emergency beacon station. The system was partially functional. She sent a signal. One word. Help. The message repeated. Outside the window, the red ocean swirled faster. Lightning flashed in the distance. The base wouldn't last long. Kaela turned to the camera. "If anyone hears this," she whispered, "don't come for me. Just end this." Suddenly, the station lights went green. Another system came online. "CRWPOD activating. More survivors." Or something else. Kaela took a deep breath. She would find out soon. Kaela Voss moved slowly through the dim corridor, her boots echoing against the metallic floor. The flickering emergency lights gave everything a red and sickly hue. Pipes groaned overhead, and water dripped steadily from cracks in the ceiling. Her breath came in soft gasps as she adjusted the oxygen regulator on her suit. The cold was biting now, even inside. She reached a sealed lab door, rusted on the edges, its control panel blinking weakly. The label read, "Xeno Research, Section B." She placed her trembling hand on the scanner. It took a moment, then hissed open with a low growl, like the base itself was resisting her. Inside, the lab was in chaos. Broken glass crunched under her feet. Tables were overturned, and equipment lay scattered as if someone had left in a hurry or had been dragged. One wall had a large screen, partially shattered. Static danced across its surface. But behind it, faint outlines of something circular, something organic, pulsed in red hues. Kaela moved toward the desk. She activated a dusty terminal, praying it still worked. The screen flickered to life. Old logs. Most were corrupted, but a few audio clips remained. She tapped play. Dr. Halvorson's log, day 123. Subject 9 has shown accelerated growth after exposure to the ocean compound. We underestimated its rate of adaptation. Containment is proving difficult. We must not alert command. If they shut us down, all of this will be for nothing. Kaela's eyes narrowed. Subject 9. Adaptation. What were they growing down here? She moved to a drawer, pulling it open. Inside were strange sketches, spine-like growths, glowing organs, something like a heart but fused with wires. Beside them, she found a photo. It was a team picture, smiling faces in white lab coats. Her face was among them, but she couldn't remember any of it. Why? She stumbled back, the realization hitting her like a wave. Had she been part of the research? Had she helped create whatever they were hiding? Kaela's radio crackled. Nothing but static. She hadn't heard any other voices since waking up. She left the lab, heart pounding, and continued down the hallway. A nearby chamber was flooded halfway, murky water rising up to her knees. She held her light steady, shining it into the water. Something moved beneath the surface. Fast. She backed away, nearly slipping. Another door loomed ahead, half open. Inside was archive storage. The room was darker than the others. Her light fell on file cabinets, half submerged. Papers floated in the water like dead leaves. She waded through, reaching a dry section where another terminal sat. She turned it on. Another video log appeared. Dr. Ellen's face, pale and nervous, filled the screen. They warned us not to go deeper, not to bring it aboard. But curiosity is a curse in science. We thought we could study it, control it, but it's learning. It mimics, replicates, dreams. I saw it last night, in my dreams. I think it's inside us now. Kaela stepped back. Inside us, she looked at her hands. Her skin looked pale, too pale. She shook her head. No, it was just the lighting, the pressure, the isolation. She turned and noticed the walls of the archive had strange markings. At first, she thought they were cracks. But looking closer, they were symbols, carved into the metal, circular, like spirals. Alien. She hadn't noticed them before. They pulsed faintly, red like blood. Who made these? She whispered. Further ahead, a door opened automatically. Cold wind rushed out. The lights inside flickered wildly. She stepped in and found herself in another lab. This one was cleaner, more advanced. Cryo chambers lined the walls, some shattered, others empty. She moved to one still intact. Inside was a figure. A woman. Eyes closed, face calm. But it wasn't human, not fully. Her skin had a faint shimmer, and strange lines ran across her body, like the symbols on the wall. The nameplate read, EXO subject, Kaela Voss. Kaela froze. What? Her voice cracked. She backed away from the glass. Another log started playing automatically on a nearby screen. Subject Voss has merged beyond expectations. Cellular blend is complete. Memory was partially wiped to avoid instability. We will awaken her last if things go wrong. If you're hearing this, she is the key. She staggered backward, heart thudding. She was the key. Had she volunteered for this? Was she even fully human anymore? Suddenly, an alarm rang through the facility. Low and rhythmic. A door across the lab burst open, water flooding in. She ran, slipping and nearly falling, grabbing onto pipes and rails as the water rushed past. She reached the hallway, slamming the door behind her. Dripping wet, panting, Kaela stood against the wall. The bass groaned again, louder this time. Lights overhead shattered. Sparks fell like fireflies. And somewhere deep within, she heard it again. A sound like breathing. Slow, heavy. She didn't know what she was anymore. But the bass remembered. Something had been awakened, and it was coming. Kaela stood at the edge of a sealed corridor, the flickering red lights casting long shadows on the metal walls. Her breath fogged up her helmet visor as she checked the oxygen levels again. She had enough for a few hours, maybe less if things went wrong. And in EXO 09, things were always one step away from going wrong. The door hissed open after a rough override. Salt water had seeped through the seams, making everything damp and rusted. Beyond it stretched a submerged tunnel, a connector between sectors that had long been sealed. The pressure down there was immense, but so was her need for answers. Kaela moved slowly through the passage. Her suit's magnetic boots clinked softly on the steel floor. Cold water dripped from pipes above, and every creak of the metal made her heart skip. The tunnel was poorly lit. Emergency lights blinked faintly, their low hum the only sound besides her steady breathing. As she went deeper, she noticed growth on the walls, strange moss-like threads glowing faintly blue. It wasn't something she remembered from the original designs. The life forms here had started adapting to the artificial structures, and possibly something had brought them in. The first junction she reached was half flooded. She hesitated at the edge of the water, her eyes scanning the dark surface. Her suit could handle it, but the unknowns were many. Still, retreat wasn't an option. She stepped in. The icy water rose past her knees, the shock of it making her tense. She switched on her suit's underwater light. The beam cut through the murky liquid, revealing pipes covered in slimy residue, and more of that glowing moss. Strange jellyfish-like organisms floated lazily near the ceiling, their transparent bodies pulsing with faint bioluminescence. Something brushed against her leg. She spun quickly, raising her tool in defense. Nothing. Only the water moved, disturbed by her panic. She steadied herself, breathing slow. Further in, she reached the old hydrolab. Its door had collapsed inward, crushed by something powerful. Kaela had to crawl through a narrow opening in the wreckage. Inside, the lab was torn apart. Equipment was scattered. Monitors broken. But the data cores, 3 of them, still glowed faintly. She approached the nearest one and connected her tablet. The file tree was corrupted but not beyond repair. She began a recovery process, watching lines of old logs stream across the screen. Most were corrupted, but a few files had names she recognized. One file was labeled simply, Specimen 0. She tapped it. The screen showed a blurred image, massive, coiled, with red bioluminescence and shifting shapes. She couldn't make sense of it. A voice recording accompanied the image. "This is Dr. Hark, day 109. We've gone too far. The organism is aware of us. It's communicating, we think, not with words, with feelings, fear, anger, hunger. The base isn't safe anymore. Kaela was right. We shouldn't have." The log cut out. Kaela froze. She didn't remember saying anything like that. Yet the file claimed she had warned them. She continued searching, her pulse quickening. Another video showed the excavation of what looked like a temple buried deep in the ocean floor. Alien symbols etched across stone pillars. Energy readings spiking. Then chaos, screens exploding, crew members screaming. Kaela leaned back, gripping the table for balance. Her memories were still a haze, but what she had seen in the footage felt real. She had been part of it, and she had forgotten, or been made to forget. Something moved outside the lab. She turned off her light and crouched low, peeking through a crack in the ruined wall. In the hallway, the water shimmered unnaturally. A ripple passed through it, like something large swimming just below the surface. A shape slid past the open door, long, eel-like, covered in luminous patterns. It didn't see her, or maybe it did, and simply didn't care. Kaela held her breath, her hand on the emergency flare at her belt. But the creature moved on, vanishing into the shadows. She didn't dare move for a full minute. When silence returned, she slipped out and headed further down the passage. The deeper she went, the more alien the surroundings became. At a lower level, she found a shaft leading directly into the seabed. The walls were no longer metal, but stone, ancient, carved, pulsing faintly with red light. Her breath caught. This wasn't part of EXO 09. She had found a breach. The base had intersected something ancient, something buried beneath the ocean long before humans arrived. Her boots crunched on crystal dust as she stepped into the alien structure. The air felt thicker, even inside her suit. Symbols lined the walls, symbols she had seen in the logs. They shimmered as she passed, reacting to her presence. A chamber opened ahead. Inside, a large sphere hovered midair, surrounded by tendrils of light. It looked like a heart, beating slowly. Kaela approached, drawn to it. The tablet in her hand buzzed violently. Energy readings spiked. Her mind felt foggy again, but not from fatigue. From something else. A voice, not words, but emotions, flooded her thoughts. "You returned." She staggered back. "Who's there?" she whispered, even though she knew no one could answer. The light in the sphere pulsed, and images filled her mind. The construction of EXO-09. The research team. The awakening of something deep in the sea. A pact. A promise. A betrayal. She saw herself shaking hands with something not human. Then, screaming. Darkness. Kaela screamed and ripped off her headset. Her knees buckled. She collapsed to the ground, gasping. Whatever was in that chamber wasn't just a power source. It was alive. And it remembered her. Suddenly, the room rumbled. The sphere flared, sending out a wave of heat and light. Kaela stumbled to her feet and ran. The tunnel behind her started collapsing. Rocks fell. Water burst in. She barely made it back to the metal corridor before a wall of water sealed the alien structure again. Panting, soaked, and terrified, Kaela collapsed in the safety of the corridor. Her suit alarm beeped, oxygen low. She had answers now, but they only raised more questions. Why had she been spared? What had they unleashed down there? And most important, why did that thing think she was one of them? The emergency lights above flickered again, casting her shadow across the wall. Then, far off, an alarm echoed through the base. Something else had awakened. Dr. Kaela Voss stood motionless inside the control room of EXO-09, her eyes fixed on the flickering screens. Lines of alien symbols scrolled across one of the monitors, symbols that had never been part of the base's language files. She hadn't touched anything. The machine had come to life on its own. Her breathing was shallow, and her fingers trembled as she reached toward the screen. But before she could make contact, the lights dimmed, and a high-pitched frequency rang through the air. Sharp, almost musical. It pierced deep into her skull, and for a moment, everything vanished. She was no longer in the control room. Kaela found herself standing in a vast red ocean, the water stretching to the horizon. Above, the sky swirled in unnatural colors. Violet, green, and black. All around her were towers of crystal and bone, humming in sync with her heartbeat. Something enormous moved beneath the waves, unseen but present. Then came the voice, not a sound, but a feeling, something speaking directly into her mind. She gasped, stumbled, and snapped back to reality. Kaela was once again in the cold, failing corridor of EXO-09. Her body was soaked in sweat. Her hands trembled. She had been alone for too long. But this wasn't just isolation. Something had touched her mind. She hurried back to the main chamber and checked the logs. Nothing had been recorded. The EM scanners showed no recent surges, but her skin still buzzed with static, and the back of her neck itched as if her body had been rewired. In the mirror beside the lab door, her reflection blinked out for a second, then blinked back, but not quite right. Her eyes had changed, just a little. Too little to trust fully, but enough to notice. She tried to shake it off. Hallucinations were common in deep isolation. But the logs she found earlier, the notes about the resonance tests, the warnings, the unreadable fragments, said otherwise. Dr. Kaela moved deeper into the lab where the resonance chamber was located. She remembered this place. Faint images returned, strapped test subjects, strange vibrations, and something breaking loose inside them. The logs on the terminal flickered to life as she approached. Resonance Sample 7. Subject exhibited increased synaptic activity, human tissue responding to non-Earth frequencies. Kaela's breath caught. That was her handwriting. She staggered back. She had tested this before. On someone. Maybe on herself. Outside, a metallic hum filled the water. Lights rippled across the ocean floor, illuminating strange movements in the sand. Something ancient was waking up. Kaela rushed to the specimen room. Inside were preserved samples of alien tissue, slimy, pulsating fragments stored in stasis tanks. Only now, they weren't dormant. The containers buzzed with energy. One of the tanks cracked. She backed away as a strand of the tissue reached toward her, pressing against the glass like it remembered her. Suddenly, a siren wailed through the base. System critical. Containment failure. Zone 3. The alien tissue burst free. Kaela ran. She dashed through dim corridors, emergency lights flashing red. She reached the medical bay and sealed the door behind her. For now, it held. Her heart pounded in her ears. She needed answers. She needed to know what they had done here, and what they had done to her. She plugged into the central AI console. The interface resisted at first, as if trying to deny her access, but then her presence seemed to unlock something. A video log appeared. Her face filled the screen. "This is Dr. Kaela Voss," her recorded voice said. "EXO 09 has achieved phase 1 of the resonance experiment. Subject 0 shows complete neurological fusion with the alien frequency. The resonance is altering human biology in ways we don't understand. I fear I'm already changing. I feel less human." Kaela stared at her own image. Her voice trembled in the recording. The woman she saw had eyes like hers, but sharper, more aware, or maybe more alien. Another log began. "The resonance isn't just a signal. It's an intelligence. It's alive. It's speaking to us, not in words, but in patterns. I can't shut it out anymore. It's in the walls, in the water. It's inside me." Kaela's hands tightened around the console. That high-pitched tone began again. This time she didn't black out, but she saw shapes dancing in the lights. Strange mathematical symbols, alien figures. And then, her own name. Kaela. Whispered. Sung. Written across the walls in glowing red. The lights flickered again. She turned around. There, at the far end of the hallway, a tall, translucent shape moved. It wasn't entirely solid, not entirely real. Its form shimmered, part machine, part creature, part memory. It didn't attack. It only watched. Kaela blinked, and it was gone. She knew now, whatever had been brought up from the abyss had reached into her mind. Maybe she had allowed it. Maybe she had designed it. But the truth was clear. The resonance was more than a discovery. It was a doorway. And it had been opened. The medical scanner beeped behind her. She hadn't used it. Yet it had run a scan. DNA mutation on DETKT. She stared at the results. New strands of code had appeared in her genome. Active ones. Ones designed to evolve. Kaela stumbled back from the console. The base was no longer just a research station. It was an engine of transformation. She had once led that transformation. Now she was its target, or its vessel. She moved to the last door, one she hadn't opened before. Behind it was the heart of EXO 09, the resonance chamber itself. The moment she stepped inside, every screen lit up. Her presence was all that was needed. And the chamber responded. The central core pulsed with energy. Floating in the center was a crystal of alien origin. Alive, humming, spinning slowly in the air. It reacted to her steps, to her breath. A voice, not hers, spoke from the walls. "You have returned, Kaela." She froze. "You opened the gate. You brought the frequency. Now you must choose, become, or be erased." Kaela stepped forward, tears forming in her eyes. The chamber glowed around her. Somewhere in her soul, something stirred. She didn't know if she was still human, but she knew she wasn't alone. and the transformation had already begun. Dr. Kaela Voss paced back and forth inside the dimly lit control room of EXO-09. Her thoughts were a whirlwind, each one clashing violently against the other. She had uncovered too much, and yet far too little. The alien influence on the station was undeniable now, not just in the malfunctioning systems, but within her own body. Every breath felt different. Every step felt heavier. Something inside her was changing. She could feel it. The monitors on the wall flickered, showing fragments of images that made no sense. Alien symbols danced across the screen, their meaning elusive. A sudden sharp pain stabbed through her head, and she staggered, clutching the console for support. Her vision blurred, and for a moment, she was no longer in the control room. She was somewhere else, somewhere dark, suffocating. Kaela. The whisper came from nowhere, and yet it was everywhere. She spun around, her heart racing. The voice was familiar, but she couldn't place it. She reached out, but there was nothing. Nothing except the weight of the alien presence that seemed to suffocate her thoughts. With a deep breath, Kaela steadied herself and fought to shake the feeling. She wasn't crazy. She was not losing her mind. The data she had uncovered, the strange dreams, the shifting realities, it all pointed to one thing: the experiment. She had been part of something before, something dark, something she couldn't remember fully. But the flashes were getting stronger now, vivid and full of detail. Faces she didn't recognize, voices she couldn't forget. She sat at the workstation and pulled up the last report from the cryo-sleep chambers. There were gaps in the data, parts that didn't add up. It was as if someone had intentionally erased the truth. But why? What had happened to her before she went into cryo-sleep? What had they done to her? The pain in her head returned, sharper this time, and she slammed her hand against the console, trying to fight it off. Her vision blurred again, but this time, something else emerged, an image clear as day. A room. No, a laboratory. She was lying on a cold metal table, surrounded by faceless figures in dark uniforms. They weren't human. They couldn't have been. Her body froze, her mind struggling to comprehend what she was seeing. The alien influence, the alien power, it had been inside her all along. She wasn't just a victim of it. She had been part of the experiment. She had volunteered for it. A flash of memory surfaced, but it was fleeting. She tried to hold on to it, to pull it into focus, but it slipped away like water through her fingers. "Why can't I remember?" she whispered aloud, her voice shaking. The whispering voice returned, low and sinister. "Because you were never meant to." Kaela jerked her head up, her pulse pounding. "Who is this?" she demanded, but the voice only laughed softly in response. Her hands trembled as she wiped away the sweat from her forehead. The air in the control room felt thicker now, suffocating, as if the walls themselves were closing in. It was the alien presence. It was alive. It was inside her. It had been there all along, and now it was waking up. Her body shuddered as another wave of pain swept through her. It was deeper this time, a sharp burning sensation that spread from her chest and down to her limbs. She gasped, struggling to breathe. She could feel something inside her, twisting, changing. The alien influence was not just in her mind. It was in her very cells, altering her from the inside out. "Make it stop," she muttered through clenched teeth, but there was no relief. The pain only intensified. Her thoughts became a jumbled mess of fear and confusion. Was this her mind, her body, or was it the alien's control over her? Kaela's breath came in ragged gasps as the memories came crashing back. The laboratory, the cold metal table, the shadowy figures around her, the alien symbols on the walls. She had been part of an experiment, a human experiment. But there was more, much more. She had been chosen. They had altered her DNA. They had inserted something alien, into her very being. Her hands trembled as she touched her face, as though expecting to find something different. But she didn't see it, at least not yet. Her mind flashed to the moment she had awoken from cryosleep. The confusion, the fear, the strange dreams that had plagued her ever since. Those dreams were not just dreams. They were memories. And they were pushing through the veil of her mind, demanding to be understood. The walls of the control room seemed to pulse, as if alive. The air hummed with an eerie energy. Kaela stumbled backward, her heart racing. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. And then she saw it. Her reflection in the glass panel. She had never looked so different. Her eyes. Those were not the eyes she remembered. They were different, glowing with an unnatural light. Her skin seemed almost translucent, as if something beneath was moving, shifting. She gasped, her hand flying to her throat. Something was inside her. The alien presence. It wasn't just in her mind. It was inside her body. She had been changed. Her body shuddered again as another wave of pain washed over her. She could feel it, the alien power awakening within her, pushing her to do things she didn't understand. It was like a fire inside her veins, a fire that she couldn't control. "No," Kaela whispered, her voice filled with terror. "I can't let this happen." But it was already happening. The control room began to spin, the walls bending and twisting around her. Her mind was fractured, torn between the woman she had been and the alien power that was taking over her. She wanted to fight. She wanted to scream. But her body no longer obeyed her. The alien force inside her was too strong. As Kaela's vision darkened, her last coherent thought was a question. What had they done to her? The answer came not from her own mind, but from something deep within, something ancient, something terrifying. "We have always been here." The voice was not just in her head. It was everywhere, surrounding her, filling the space. And then everything went black. The silence in EXO-09 had become unnerving, broken only by the low hum of malfunctioning systems and the occasional groan of the station's metal framework. Kaela walked through the dimly lit corridors, her footsteps echoing in the emptiness. The lights flickered overhead, casting long shadows that seemed to twist and stretch unnaturally. The base, once a marvel of human engineering, was now a crumbling labyrinth of rusting pipes, broken panels, and decaying walls. Something had changed since Kaela's awakening. The alien influence that had been creeping through her mind had spread further, touching every part of the station. The air felt thicker, charged with an energy she couldn't understand. It was as if the entire facility was alive, sick, dying, and yet somehow waking up at the same time. As Kaela moved deeper into the base, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her. The hair on the back of her neck stood on end, and she tightened her grip on the weapon she had taken from the armory. The creature that had been stirring in the depths of the ocean. Kaela could feel it now. It was waking, and with it, something ancient and monstrous was emerging from the deep. The alien forces surrounding the station had begun to feed it, waking something that should have stayed asleep. The lights flickered once more, then went out completely. Kaela froze, her heart hammering in her chest. The only sound was her ragged breathing and the low rumble coming from the depths of the station. She reached for her flashlight, turning it on with shaky hands. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing a narrow hallway ahead. The walls were covered in strange markings, symbols that Kaela had seen before. The same symbols that had been on the alien ships and the lab where she had been experimented on. Her mind raced, but there was no time to dwell on it. The rumbling had grown louder, and the station seemed to shake in response. The walls groaned, and a loud crack echoed through the corridors. Kaela's stomach twisted with dread. Something was moving, and it was getting closer. She quickened her pace, the sound of her footsteps now drowned out by the rumbling that filled the entire base. She turned a corner and almost ran into a figure standing in the middle of the hallway. Her flashlight flickered, casting brief shadows over the figure's face. It was one of the crew members, but his eyes were wide and wild, his skin pale and covered in strange black veins. He was muttering to himself, speaking words that didn't make sense. Kaela took a step back, her heart racing. "What happened to you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The man turned slowly toward her, his eyes unblinking, his mouth twisting into a grotesque smile. "It's here," he whispered, his voice hollow. "The deep, it calls. We are its children now." Before Kaela could respond, the man lunged at her with unnatural speed. She barely had time to raise her weapon before he collided with her, pushing her to the ground. The flashlight flew from her hand, spinning in the air before landing in the darkness. Kaela fought to break free, struggling against the man's iron grip. She could feel the coldness of his touch, as if his very body was no longer human. His breath was ragged, his skin clammy and slick with something foul. With a burst of strength, Kaela managed to kick him off, sending him stumbling backward. He fell to the ground, his body twitching violently. His eyes rolled back in his head, and he let out a low guttural scream that echoed through the station. Kaela scrambled to her feet, grabbing the flashlight and shining it on the man's twitching form. In the dim light, she saw something that made her stomach churn. His skin was beginning to split open, revealing dark, writhing tendrils beneath. The alien influence was spreading, mutating everything it touched. The man's body was changing into something monstrous. She didn't wait to see what would happen next. She turned and ran, her heart pounding in her chest. The rumbling had grown louder, now accompanied by a deep, guttural sound that seemed to be coming from the ocean below. The deep ocean. Kaela could feel it now. The presence that had been awakening, stirring in the darkness beneath the waves. The creature, the force that had been disturbed by the alien energies, was growing stronger with each passing moment. As she sprinted through the corridors, Kaela passed through areas of the station she had never seen before. The walls were covered in strange moss-like growths, pulsating with an eerie glow. The air was thick with a foul, briny odor, and the ground beneath her feet felt slick and unstable. She slid down a narrow stairwell, almost losing her balance as the entire station seemed to sway beneath her. The further she descended, the more the station seemed to deteriorate. The walls cracked and crumbled around her, and the lights flickered erratically. A loud crash came from somewhere above, followed by a distant scream. Kaela didn't stop. She couldn't afford to stop. She reached the lowest level of the station, where the research labs were housed. The doors were open, and a strange, otherworldly light spilled out from within. The air here felt thick with energy, powerful, ancient, and terrifying. Kaela stepped inside, her flashlight illuminating the room. The walls were covered in symbols, the same ones she had seen earlier, but there was something else now, something new. At the center of the room was a large, circular tank, its glass cracked and shattered. Inside, suspended in a thick, viscous liquid, was a creature, half human, half something else. Its body was a twisted amalgamation of human and alien features, its skin translucent and covered in veins. Its eyes were open, glowing with a faint otherworldly light. Kaela's breath caught in her throat as she realized what she was looking at. This creature, it was her, or rather, it had been her. Her mind flashed back to the experiments, the alien force that had altered her DNA, changing her from the inside out. This creature, this being, was the result of those experiments. But it was also something more, something ancient, something that had been waiting for the right moment to emerge, and now it was calling. The ground beneath her feet shook again, harder this time. The rumbling from below was deafening, and the walls cracked even more, sending debris falling to the floor. Kaela's thoughts raced. The creature, the mutated form of herself, was the key. The alien influence had created it, and now it was reaching out, awakening the ancient power that lay hidden beneath the ocean. She could feel it now, the pull, the call of the deep. Kaela closed her eyes, her breath shaky. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew one thing for sure. She was no longer just a victim of the alien forces. She was part of them, part of the power that had awakened. And now she had to choose. Would she embrace this power and become the force that would end everything? Or would she fight it, risk everything to stop the creature from unleashing a cataclysmic force upon the world? The choice was hers, but the clock was ticking, and the deep was calling. The base trembled violently, its walls groaning under the weight of the cosmic forces that had been awakened. Kaela stood in the command center, her breath shallow, her heart pounding. The very air around her felt thick, oppressive, as though the station itself was on the verge of collapsing. Outside the shattered windows, the dark abyss of space stretched endlessly, a reminder of how far she had fallen from the world she once knew. The station's control room had become a battlefield. Sparks flew from broken panels, and the flickering lights cast erratic shadows on the walls. The once sterile environment was now a crumbling, chaotic relic of human ambition. The alien power that had slowly infiltrated her mind and body had spread throughout the entire base, corrupting everything it touched. Kaela's hand shook as she gripped the railing beside her. The memories of her transformation flooded back. Flashes of alien symbols, twisted visions, the horrible truth that she was not entirely human anymore. She could feel the alien presence inside her, pulsing like a heartbeat. It wasn't just a part of her mind now. It had seeped into every fiber of her being. The creature, the one she had seen in the lab, was a part of her too. A creation of the experiments, an evolution of the human form. The very same forces that had mutated the station were now coursing through her veins. She was no longer simply a survivor of the catastrophe. She was its architect. And now she stood at a precipice, forced to decide whether to embrace this new, terrifying power or hold onto the fragile threads of humanity that still clung to her soul. The room around her shook once more, a deeper rumble this time. She could hear the cries of the mutated crew members echoing from the corridors. Some of them had already fallen to the alien influence, their bodies twisted and broken, while others had tried to fight, only to be consumed by the deep, dark power that had awakened. Kaela turned to the console in front of her, watching as the monitors flickered and sputtered. The data on the screen confirmed what she had already felt. EXO 09 was beyond saving. The alien force had fully taken hold, and there was no turning back. She could feel it. The pull, the deep primal force that beckoned her. She was on the verge of something unimaginable, something that could reshape the future of humanity. But at what cost? The choice was simple, yet impossible. To fully embrace the alien transformation meant ultimate power, the ability to command forces beyond comprehension, to be something far greater than human. But it also meant surrendering the last remnants of her humanity, becoming a vessel for something that was not truly hers. The human part of her, her memories, her emotions, her empathy, would be consumed by the alien essence that now lived inside her. But if she resisted, if she clung to the fragile humanity that still remained, she would be left with nothing. The base would collapse. The alien forces would spread beyond the station, and humanity would be lost. There was no middle ground. There was no way to walk away unscathed. Kaela's thoughts raced as she looked down at her trembling hands. The power inside her was like fire, burning through her veins, urging her to embrace it, to become something more. But there was a part of her, just a tiny, fragile part, that resisted. She remembered her old life, her dreams, her hope for a future that was now slipping away. She remembered the world she had left behind, the people she had once known. Could she really destroy everything she had ever cared about? Could she allow herself to become a monster for the sake of survival? Her chest tightened, and she clenched her fists, digging her nails into her palms. The alien voice, that whisper that had haunted her since her awakening, filled her mind again, louder now. Embrace us, Kaela. You are one of us. The future is here. It has always been here. Her mind reeled. The alien force had been inside her all along, shaping her, changing her. It had been there before she had even realized it. The symbols, The dreams, the strange pull toward the ocean. It was all connected. The alien presence had always known her. It had been guiding her toward this moment. And now she had a choice. Kaela's vision blurred as the room spun around her. She could feel the pressure building, the alien energy pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. The walls seemed to close in, the station groaning under the weight of the impending catastrophe. She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. It was now or never. A wave of energy surged through her, and for a moment, Kaela felt as if she was being torn apart. The alien presence inside her demanded to be released. It was a violent, overwhelming force, and for a second, Kaela thought she would lose herself entirely. But then, something inside her shifted, something deep within her soul, the part of her that was still human, pushed back. She wasn't ready to let go. Not yet. With a sudden burst of clarity, Kaela pushed through the wave of alien power, her mind locking onto the one thing that could still save her, the choice to fight. The choice to be more than just an instrument of destruction. "I am still human," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the chaos around her. "I choose to survive." The alien energy inside her recoiled, but it wasn't defeated. It was hesitant, unsure, as if it hadn't expected her resistance. Kaela gritted her teeth, pushing against the flood of power that threatened to overtake her. She focused on her heartbeat, on the feeling of the floor beneath her feet, on the sound of her own breath. She was stronger than it knew, stronger than she had ever believed. The alien force inside her began to shift, to twist, and for the first time, Kaela felt a surge of control. It wasn't the pure, raw power she had been offered, but something different, something that was uniquely her own. It was a fusion of human will and alien strength, a rebirth. The station around her began to change as well. The crumbling walls stopped shaking, the lights flickered back to life, and the rumbling from below began to fade. It was as if the alien influence had been tempered by Kaela's defiance, forcing the monstrous presence to retreat, if only for a moment. Kaela stepped away from the console, her breath steady now. The choice had been made. She was no longer just a victim of the alien forces. She had become something new, something that defied both humanity and alien power, a bridge between two worlds. But even as the station quieted, she knew the battle wasn't over. This was just the beginning. The alien force wasn't gone, it was merely lying in wait. And now, Kaela was its equal. She had become something that neither side had anticipated. A creature of two worlds. The future was uncertain, a vast, dark void ahead. But as Kaela gazed out the shattered windows of EXO-09, she felt a strange sense of peace. The world she had known was gone, but a new one had begun. And in that new world, she would be both its savior and its destruction. The lines between human and alien had blurred forever. And from that, something entirely new would be born.